Hey, it's Mr. Allred, and we've been working on probability. We're going into 7.2, and I want to show you some things with your calculator. There's three things we want to talk about in your calculator, and it's very important that you kind of get a calculator you're used to so that when it comes time to use it in different settings, you're familiar with it. So you don't have to stress about how do I do a certain thing or where are the buttons or can I even use this calculator. So that's what we're going to do here. We're going to focus on three different things, although I kind of combined two of them. The first one here is factorials. Okay. Usually in this course, very few people are really that familiar with them. But a factorial multiplies a number by every whole number less than it. And the general notation is to use the number with an exclamation point. So that sounds very confusing, but if you go back and read that explanation, you'll see down here I've got 5 factorial. So I'm going to multiply 5 by every whole number less than it. So 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. And that gives me 120. Here I also have that 8 factorial is 40,320. So if you keep multiplying by larger numbers, that many numbers together, it can get large very quickly. And you can try that out in a calculator yourself. And 12 factorial, I didn't put commas in here, so 479,001,600. But those are really big, and you kind of hate to have to mash those buttons over and over and over because it's very easy to make a mistake. So let's see where these things are on your calculator. So I've got two different calculators here. They're both TIs, TI-30s actually. Pretty much all Texas Instruments are of one of these two forms. If you have a Casio or something else, you may have to look for similar buttons, and hopefully you can see what's on here pretty well. But the first calculator over here, I'm going to ask you to try it if you have it. Basically, you would type in, if you want to try it, 5. And the factorial button is you have to hit this second key up here. Let me use a different color here. Ooh. Wasn't expecting that. Let's see if the blue works. Not very well. Looking for a good color. Green by itself. How about this? How about let's circle it in red. Okay, so the second button here. And then 3 down here. If you look over the 3, there's the X factorial. So you'll type in your number 5 and you'll hit second 3. And it'll go ahead and tell you that it should be 120. So try all 3 of those if that's the kind of calculator you got and see if it works. If not, the second calculator over here, same thing. You would type in your number like 5 and you're going to hit this button right here, PRB, which stands for probability. And the probability will give you these 3 options up here, NPR, NCR, which we're going to use a little bit later. But over here is the factorial. So when you type in your number 5 and you hit this PRB for probability, it'll give you these 3 choices. You can arrow over to the exclamation point and then hit enter, and it should give you the 120. So I suggest whatever calculator you have, try all 3 of these just to make sure you're getting the right thing. I don't want to see you get one of them by accident and not have a good understanding. Okay, so that's factorials. We'll talk more about them later. The next thing we need to talk about is permutations and combinations. Just a very brief explanation here because we're going to talk about them more in the next video. But a permutation creates an ordered subgroup of R items from a larger group of N items. But the notation that you'll usually see is this NPR. N being the total number of items and R being the number that you're picking. And then a combination does the same thing, except it doesn't count ordered groups. Okay, we'll describe that a little bit later. It just makes groups. So NCR is the notation there. So here's a couple of values that should be calculated. HP3 is 336, while HC3 is 56. So without any understanding of that, I want to make sure you can get those numbers from the calculator for when I explain them later. So permutations on The smaller calculator here, you would type in your first number, such as 8, hit your second, and then the permutation is right above the 9, so second 9. So you would say 8 second 9, and then you would type in your 3 and hit enter, and it should give you the 336. If you're going to do the combination, you do the exact same thing, except you use the 8 where you see the NCR above it. Okay. And if that's the calculator you have, I suggest you try all my examples and make sure you get the right numbers. If you have the other calculator, you would type in your first number like 8 again. You would hit the probability. That pulls up the menu. Up here is the NPR. If you want that, you just hit enter and then type in your 3. If you want the combination, you arrow over to the NCR and type in your 3, and you should get the answers I have. So make sure you are able to get these correctly. It's one thing to understand what's going on. It's another thing to be able to get the right answer. If you are not using a calculator, the same calculator consistently, you're going to have trouble. So make that happen. Generally, in my class, if you have to borrow one, if you have to borrow one, what happened here? It slid me way back up, didn't it? If you have to borrow one, usually I have the second one over here on the right, but you should be able to have one that you consistently use. Alright, so we'll be using these a little bit more in the next video and actually know what to do with them as far as why we're calculating what we're calculating. Thank you.